So important. Layer's doing a great job so far. Lasbra, he started off strong, but has since slowed down his own pace. I'm liking what we're seeing from the Tartarus Titans jungler.
Definitely playing much more proactively. Jake plucks the minion instead of maybe grabbing a roar there. Maybe the target he was really after at that point. But 7 minutes in, Tartarus Titans, even despite the ones not getting the first blood in this game, they're the ones with a very slight gold lead, about 400 to their name. Maybe some of that from Cyclone Spin keeping Barracuda pushed under this tier 1.
Yeah, last game it was Jake just never leaving the duo lane. He was hand-holding Barracuda the entire time because this is not a great matchup. Any ADC versus Bologna, not exactly ideal. She's got multiple ways to deal with your main source of damage. Auto attacks, block stance when using the first ability, disarm when using Scourge. So, I am surprised to see a strategy that had worked out so well for the Olympus Bolts in essentially the exact same matchup foregone in Game 2. Jake has really left the duo lane and has not gone back.
We have seen that even despite all the pressure that's been put on Venenu, he does have a slight XP lead over Paul. Maybe some of that does come from that first blood that Venenu was able to grab in the initial 1v1
Double
turn
stack
2v1.
Ugh.
But it's going to be the second stacking item out of Venenu. Book of Thought to start out, and a Warlock Staff right after.
That is just disgusting. The Olympus Bolt said, hey, 40-minute games, we love those. We're going to slow
We're going to build
this
to the
pace.
40s.
Book of Thoth Warlock Staff, maybe like a Book of the Dead afterward. I wouldn't put it past Ven to slot like a Breastplate of Valor in there too. This could be one of the most annoying hell builds just in the game, full stop, blanket statement. So if the Tartarus Titans want to kill Ven, they're going to have to do it soon. Eventually, he is just going to be super hard to deal with.
And one of the names of the game we were talking about earlier was anti-heal across the board to deal with the healing from Ven and the self-healing that comes from everybody else on the team, just about, even when you factor in the lifesteal that Barracuda has already slotted into. So far, we haven't seen any anti-heal. It's only Layers with that 100% in his ultimate. Gotta imagine that Paul's gonna need to build a Divine Ruin at some point into his build.
Yeah, but Paul's not the best applicator of Divine Ruin. Like Wing Gust, sure, you can hit multiple targets, but it's relatively close range. Spirit Ball, really only single target as well. So if I'm looking at anti-heal, I'm thinking about maybe SOT with a Divine Ruin, Contagions, Pestilence, things along those lines for Aurora. Even Cyclone Spin if he's able to close gap, Toxic Blade. But building Divine Ruin on E-Set, it feels like it's just like you want the penetration, you want the power. It's more so about the stats because she is just not very good at applying that passive.
Well, let's see what anti-heal does get built by the Titans. Because so far, as I mentioned, aside from Layer's ultimate, they got nothing on the board just yet. Curse Stomp could be an option for Aurora if he wants to slot that alongside his Bracer. Yes, Awesome Jake walking into the mid, trying to find a time to pluck Paul, but hasn't been given the opportunity between the silence of Paul and the silence from Aurora. Not much that Jake can do to find a target.
No, Jake just biding his time, rotating through, looking for pressure. It seems like neither one of these teams are too pressed for time right now. They're both very content to farm up throughout the early. And the Tartarus Titans finding slight leads through that. You've got Cyclone Spin, who's zoned out and controlled the neutral farm. Ven on the other side has been able to establish himself a slight lead. Experience otherwise largely equalized, barring SOT in the soul lane, who should just pull ahead by nature of being Poseidon. We see it every single time these mid laners lock it in. Hey, we're super fast. We're just going to go clear like every camp and the wave, and there's really not much you can do about it. SOT embodying that style.
I mean, he did it in game number 1, went down 2 kills immediately in the lane, and then ended up hitting level 20 by the 19-minute mark, faster than anybody else in the game, and by a considerable margin as well. So SAT, no stranger to the power farm of it. A bit of a change-up in the build. Going Breastplate of Valor second to go up against the double physical on his side of the map. Now going into a Void Stone, third item.
He has also foregone the teleport, so instead has beads into the frenzy, so a bit more team fight presence for the Tartarus Titans. Should have an easier time securing some of their own kills. A struggle that both the Bolts and Titans had in the previous match. Additional power just works out very well. I had a conversation originally with Neil Maz. There's some posturing around the Pyromancer, reset by both teams. He had said to me, man, I don't really like Ankh all that much. I feel like anytime I'm applying anti-heal, it would have been just
out. Actually did put the remainder of his points after Scourge into that bludgeon.
So his damage output is there. He's got a good deal of burst potential now. I am surprised the Tartarus Titans haven't been trying to just run down objectives between Dharmic Pillars and Circle Protection. this is just a very good objective composition from those two pieces alone. That's not even talking about the auto attack burn potential of Layers or even Cyclone Spin in some of these team fights. If you're taking the Pyro, SOT on this Poseidon with Trident, one of the better burn gods in the game as well. So you'd think the Tartarus Titans would love to just try and get a lead through the objective, but so far haven't really even looked towards Pyro, haven't even looked towards the Gold Fury, and instead it's the Olympus Bolts in first.
Haddox rotating over and playing as the frontline zone. The Olympus Bolts will be able to grab this Pyromancer with zero contest. SOT doesn't rotate over, Aurora doesn't walk into the jungle, and now with our first kind of significant-ish lead, 800 gold.
Emphasis
I can't even
on ish.
Ish. A big emphasis on ish.
Yeah, that is not massive, but certainly not nothing. And the Olympus Bolts have got that not nothing in spades for themselves. More important, I think, to remove Pyromancer from the map so that you can start thinking about the Gold Fury. Because the Olympus Bolts are probably having the exact same thought process I was, which is, man, I really hope Paul doesn't walk up to an objective and drop Circumprotection. Because there's really not a whole lot of fight-in potential or steal potential from this Bolts draft. Hell doesn't have like that long-range burst damage. You don't really have the greatest way to contend with those cooldowns. Even the Dharmic Pillars are really good at controlling space against the majority of the composition from the Olympus Bolts. So good on them to take away something from the Tartarus Titans and get that not nothing for themselves.
SOT really is playing this Poseidon like a solo laner now, because I've seen him throw out so many Krakens just to throw them out there. He's thrown, I think, 2 or 3 against Haddox. Sure, they haven't connected and gotten a stun, haven't really got a whole lot of damage, but he's throwing them out there, and that's something that you always want out of your players, is to not be afraid to throw your ultimates whenever you get the chance. Maybe see if you can bait something else out of Haddox, maybe try and get his ultimate, but SOT hasn't been met with that same regard. Haddox been holding on to his ult for quite some time.
Yeah, Haddox is very concerned about the team fight. Jake off the mark with the pluck, has taken some damage here, but he's got a Hell on his side, and he's got Sickening Strike on his kit, so should be able to resustain pretty quickly. Small skirmish over the mid camps will go to the Tartarus Titans, and I'm thinking that's just going to be the case for a little while as Ven continues to stack up his Warlock staff, waiting on some of those power spikes. Paul has gone for a bit of a faster build, Soul Gem in second slot. Good deal of burst, a little bit of lifesteal, some power. Doesn't have to worry about stacking it up nearly as much. So, if you wanted to go towards an objective, now could be the time for the Tartarus Titans.
Would be opportune. I believe the vision control on the Fury was for the Olympus Bolts moments ago. Now those Oracle Harpies about to respawn. Lasbra will take the Eagles rally, and that's it. I thought maybe there would be anything more beyond that, but no, with Barracuda standing by, it seems that Cyclone was fine just throwing the ultimate, but that's a big ult to use on one person.
Yeah, he really, really wanted that chalice, okay? When the game is this close, legitimately, like, I want to see ults on Totems of Coup. I want to see Eagle rallies on these chalices. If those are the only way you can separate yourself, close up gaps, or establish them, yeah, commit. There's no team fights. We're 16 minutes in, and we've seen maybe one actual skirmish so far. So get crazy with your ultimates. Play for yourself. Try and get these leads on the map. Do whatever you can to get a Trebuchet rolling. Anything to get this game started.
Well, the Trebuchet will roll for the Olympus Bolts one more time, and it'll be once more in Barracuda's lane, who has still been pushed this Tier 1 tower. He hasn't really gotten to walk beyond this line, this imaginary line. I can't even call it the midway point. It's kind of like the 3/4 in his lane. He'll be stuck at that Tier 1 tower while Cyclone and Aurora continue to push up inside their jungle. Barracuda will likely lose out on this purple buff unless Jake can find a steal of his own up against it. Does not. Silence is good, but Tailwhip finds one. Layers gets a kill on Haddox on the right side of the map, but nothing more to be hit at on the left side at the least.
Yeah, so purple buff secured for the Olympus Bolts, and the Layers secures the 3rd kill of the game on the right-hand side. Haddox 32nd for the Grayscale. Actually doesn't even use any of his relics. Blink still maintained for the fort as well. Cyclone Spin pretty far up. A bit of trouble here. It's a chase from the Olympus Bolts. That should be it. Aurora's got ultimate, holding on to it. Doesn't really feel like he's under much pressure here. Jake should have had the dash available, but you really don't want to go into the tower.
Fire Giant by the Titans. It's only SOT and Layers. Lasbra is here.
Hey, what are you guys up to?
And that'll be the end of the Fire Giant. Some decent damage, but SOT and Layers are eating a lot of poke from the fire just by themselves. No real sustain built for themselves. And that'll be a disengage there. And now the Olympus Bolts can at least tease the Gold Fury for a moment to see if any of the Titans walk forward.
And Paul was going to walk forward. Looked like Jacob would have tried to pluck him out, but Paul takes the slow approach, and the Olympus Bolts do not stick to the objective. Aurora, though, he's going to get plucked in.
Thrown right back in, dashes out, but not far enough. Barracuda with one. Kraken does hit Barracuda before he gets to the sky. And a circle of protection will lock
Good
down
time.
Jake. Not enough because Lasbro's there to play the savior, but it doesn't save him enough. SOT picks up the kill. It's a 1-for-1, and Cyclone and SOT on the hunt.
Yeah, SOT so fast now, can connect all of his damage. Ven in some trouble. That's both of his relics.
They just used cleanse is good. A heal on the Lasbro, healing himself once again, but a dive in by Laylers will pick up another kill for the Titans. Cyclone at half, and SOT soaking up the tower, but they have left Layers all by himself for Lasbro to clean up.
2-for-1 trade quickly turned to 2-for-2. The Olympus Bolts and the Tartarus Titans strike back and forth. Can either of these teams actually look towards the Gold Fury? I'm thinking the answer has got to be no. Paul, no circle protection available means that you've lost out on your secure. But we're starting to see the strengths of this Poseidon solo. SOT just incredibly fast. He got there.